Welcome to another episode of I Quit My Job, where ordinary individuals take that leap of faith and they go on to do something extraordinary. Today's guest is Fennella Bruce, an award-winning TV, media, and television producer, educator, board leader, and now media magnet. And she bet on herself. It wasn't about quitting. It was about building her own. Thank you so much for showing up.
Thanks for having me, first of all. Fennella Karen Bruce.
Oh,
I am Karen.
You're
I'm not Karen.
You're not that Karen.
The title of this podcast was me. I did quit my job. I didn't quit my job in any sort of like anger or I had enough or anything like that. I quit my job in a point of, I think, evolution. I had sort of reached a certain point in my career. I was a news producer at the time for CTV National News Channel. My children, I have 2 kids. I'm in their late teens, so they didn't need me as much to, drive them to soccer and basketball and all these different things, right? And so I had a little bit more freedom, which I hadn't had for X amount of years.
Right.
To figure things out. And I was at a point as well where the media landscape was changing and a lot of people, and we see this even still today, were being laid off, right?
Right.
And I didn't like the idea of walking in and, being out of my control, sort of like walking in on eggshells, not knowing if one day I wasn't going to have a job, because it had happened to me twice.
Oh, really?
Yes. And so I was like, I really don't want to go through that again, because your whole life is turned upside down in like a split second.
Right.
So I was like, okay, so what can I do so that doesn't happen to me again? And where do I want to go? And where do I see myself in the next 10, 15 years to retirement? What is it that I want to be doing? And I had always been an entrepreneur at heart. I'd always been doing things on the side. When I was working in media as a producer, I was also teaching. I was also teaching at Centennial College. I was teaching a media literacy course that I developed for 5 years. So I always had another side hustle happening. I thought about, okay, what is it that I can do? What is it that I have amassed in 25 years plus of experience in media that I can now turn into money? I think also part of it was that I felt, as a producer, I was always behind the scenes. And not that you're trying to, you're not there for the glory, right?
Right.
But I was doing a lot of things that people didn't recognize that I was doing.
Right.
Right. I was having a lot of impact. I was playing a role in decisions. I was deciding the news of the day, and nobody knew that I was the one who was doing that. And so I felt maybe a little bit stifled by that, and that my skills and abilities weren't being thoroughly recognized. What did I do? I got a job coach, and I started doing sort of self-assessment on myself, my risk. Because
Risk to reward.
Yep. Being an entrepreneur is very risky, right? And my ability to sustain myself financially, my children, my home, etc. What was required on a monthly basis? Would I be able to accomplish that? What areas do I think my skill set works best? Like all of these things you have to do before you decide, hey, I'm going to quit my job, right?
Right.
Even when I kind of figured out what it was I was going to do, and I decided I was going to be a quote unquote media consultant, I still had my job and I still tested the waters while I was employed. What I ended up doing when I eventually did quit, I quit because I was too busy. I couldn't do both anymore. I got so much business on the side that it was now my job was getting in the way of my
Okay. And you reached the highest level in Canadian television. So what was the first quiet moment when you realized staying might cost me more than if I left?
I had reached the highest point in terms of as a news producer, as a producer of a show. There was higher than that, an executive producer or managing a newsroom, etc. And I looked at those positions and I was like, do I want to go there next? Absolutely not.
No.
No, because that was stress. Like that's more responsibility, which is more stress. And when it comes time to cutting, those people are cut first. And so then I looked around, right, the newsroom and the industry and said, okay, is there anywhere else in this that I want to go? Is there another station I want to go and work at? Maybe there's somewhere else. Just looking at different things. And I realized, no, I didn't want to do what was out there. I wanted to create my own thing.
Oh, nice. So you had that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah. There are certain stories that happen every year. So after a while, like I felt I was using like 1/8 of my brain. I could call it, I could write it ahead of time,
Right.
like literally write the story ahead of time because I knew it was going to happen, right?
Okay.
One of the reasons that I got into media is because it's different every day. So, and there's an adrenaline that you have, particularly with breaking news and with things that are a curiosity that you have for things that you don't know about. I think any good journalist has to have, and that's what kind of drives you. So when it kind of sort of flatlines after a while, right,
Okay.
depending on where you're working and what you're doing, then you don't have that stimulus anymore. It's almost like a drug.
On top of that, like, what was emotionally harder? Was it leaving a secured network? You have a secure position, or was it going into the unknown of what you're stepping into?
You know what? Neither was hard. I'll tell you why. So I certainly looked at the risk, but I'm a person who make sure they have a safety net, right? And also think about things logically. So I sat there and I said, okay, look at my job. Let's say worst, and you always have to look at worst case scenario. Are my parents going to let me be on the street with my kids? No. So that's never going to happen. I have a safety net, a strong family safety net for that. Do I have enough money in the bank to sustain myself for 6 months, for a year, if anything
Oh wow.
doesn't come?
Oh wow.
Right? Yes, I'm good with that. Okay, so then the next scenario, if I needed to work, could I work? So before I left CTV, because they didn't want me to go because I was a good producer,
Right.
they're like, anytime you want to come back and you want to just freelance, you want to come in on a weekend, let us know. And so I said, okay. Now I was okay, but they asked me to come in because they were short producers. And so here was the thing. Now I was like company. So you want me to come in, you got to pay my company rate. So I had that in my back pocket that, okay, if I needed to make an extra money, it's not a big deal for me to go in and produce.
So now you've left. It's no longer glamorous now. You're not in the newsroom. There's nothing. There's no horns going off. There's no newsroom buzz. What was that first day like? Just now you're doing your own thing. Like, kind of take us to that moment.
Well, I set up my own home office, right? So
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah, it was an adjustment, sort of working by yourself, but I also actually prefer that. Like, I'm a person who I'm good working independently, and what was an adjustment was the whole sort of setting boundaries in that home environment. I have to, continue as if I'm in the office every day, get up, get dressed, right? And act like this is now I'm going to work.
What was the biggest adjustment in your mindset?
Setting boundaries with my clients, which I do now that I didn't do before, where it's like, and it was also part, the nervousness about like, I want to make sure I'm making money, right? So, taking calls like in the evening or on the weekend or doing work or responding. I was doing it. And then I was also burning out doing it because I was making myself too available, right? And so then I had to be like, okay, how can I adjust things so that I feel still like I'm not neglecting people, but I'm still setting those boundaries. And one of the things I did was, okay, because I have this thing, everybody has their phone in their hand or whatever. So I would see an email come in and then I want to respond. But if the minute you respond, then the person's going to respond back because you're responding. So I would just respond and then I would schedule it to go out on the Monday. So I've responded it, I released it, and it's going out Monday morning.
Right.
So then I'm okay.
Was there any moment of fear? Was there any moment of like second guessing your decision?
I don't really think I did.
No, you sound like you didn't. You sound like you had them.
I'd be like really like making it up if I said I did it. I'm trying to think of those moments, and I've been blessed. And one of the things that part of that blessing is that I've been really good at networking throughout my career. And that's something I always like emphasize with my students or whatever, is that those connections that you make, and at the time you may not even know, what this connection will be, right? But it's always important to, if you're in a room, make sure that you're talking to people and they know who you are and they know what you're doing, because you never know where that way may lead to, right? So, people heard that I was doing this. They talked, other people saw stuff. I grudgingly embraced social media. So I started putting stuff out and then people were contacting me. It just snowballed. Like, I have never paid for advertising. It's just really being organic. It's really being about relationships and talking to people and reputation and doing good work.
So what advice would you give somebody? I know, like you just mentioned it, networking and things, but what advice would you give somebody that's in that position?
I would say with anything that you're doing, right? I always deliver. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it, right? Very rarely do I not. And if I don't, I'll let you know right away, whatever it is that I can't or why I can't do it. But if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. As I mentioned, your reputation is everything. One of the things that I always tell people and this is I learned from journalism school, is that you have to be open to everything. I had to learn that. Just because I can do something doesn't mean I should do something. Right. So I have a lot of skills and I'm always up for a challenge, but sometimes, you know what, I got to stay in my lane, right? And so because I can, I don't know, produce a major event doesn't mean I should do that, because that's not what my business is. And
so is there any gems that you go by? Like that you live by, saying that keeps you going? Like, not gems that you see on Instagram, work hard, grind your life, do all these things. Is there something you live by?
Well, there's one that I'm doing right now, because I went to church for New Year's Eve. Church that I went to, they always have a theme for the year to go, and I really am embracing this year's words because I liked it, which is dream big, live now. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to be doing. I try to always think big, right? And then you can always scale down. Don't small up yourself, as they say. And live now is just like, tomorrow is not promised, right? So everything that you're putting off, you may not get to those things, right? So whatever it is that you can do, I'm a big fan of lists. Like, lists motivate me, and I'm old school, and I have a notebook. I have notebooks, right? And I like to write down stuff, and I like to check them off, and it just gets me going. And so, write down those things. I'm a vision board person too. Vision and everything on my vision board comes true. Even more so, my focus in 2026 is thinking outside of Toronto, thinking outside of even Canada, thinking globally, like to stop just thinking locally. Whole big world out there of people and ideas and creativity that you could be marketing to and that you're missing out on.
So what would you say to someone that's looking to start their own business?
As you just said, I had a job coach, but I also had a lot of mentors. What I would tell people, there's a lot of resources out there, free resources out there. Like I said, I tapped into my business center where I live, right? And so they have a lot of courses and programs and stuff that you can tap into. Look at other companies and what they're doing. Maybe see if you can have a coffee chat with that person and see how they did it, right? Not to say that you're going to do exactly what they did, but to just get some ideas and to understand, what's involved and the landscape and what you may need to be.
So what are some of the misconceptions of being successful in
That is glamorous.
Yeah, that was glamorous lifestyle. What are some of the misconceptions?
I think it's that people think, you're spending a lot of time going to parties and to premieres and to this. And I actually don't go to a lot of things. Right. People are actually very surprised when they see me out. And it's not that I don't want to. It just depends. I look at things now and, okay, what is the work value for me? A, is it taking me from work? Or B, what can I get out of it? Is it a room where I can network? Is there somebody, I'll look and see who's going to be there. Okay, this is my goal tonight, is to meet this person, to have a conversation, to exchange a number, whatever it is, right? I don't want to say I can't just go in there and have fun, because I do have fun. People will tell you I can party. Right. But I don't just go into certain places without a game plan in mind.
So you go there with a purpose.
Yeah, definitely. I want to know who's going to be in the room. I wanted to make sure that, I touch hands with them and have a conversation, or they see me, or yeah, you have to have a purpose, right? And especially when you're an entrepreneur, right? This is sort of your way of networking, of getting, contacts, or to build your reputation, or let people know what you're doing. This is your billboard, right?
What did quitting give you that staying would not have given?
It's giving me more money.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I make more money than I was when I was working.
And was that part of the goal when you had that in mind?
Not at all.
No?
No. Obviously I wanted to make enough money to support myself. I've never been a person who's money obsessed. If that is the goal, then you probably won't succeed. I'm driven by my passion for what I do. I get excited when I turn on the news and I see my people on there, or I open the paper, or they're on the front page of the paper, right? Or they're on the radio and I hear them, and I've coached them and they're doing well. That's what gets me going, right? So it's not okay, I got a check. That's not exciting to me. That's just a bill to pay. What drives me is my work. One of the things that, I love to see, right, is people who look like me, on TV in those roles, talking intelligently, right, giving their opinions, right, because we can. And that's one of the things that used to bother me, that I didn't see those people.
So now if you're coaching an individual to be on in one of the morning sessions and they're going off the bandwagon, like, do you like pull your hair out when you're watching this? Like, how do you like approach and handle that? And does this happen a lot?
No, it doesn't happen a lot, because generally I will speak to them beforehand and guide them. But sometimes nervousness takes over, right? And it happens to the best of us. It's happened to me. And so I keep that in mind. So I'm never hard on anybody afterwards. Like, I'll tell them what they could have done better, and what, where they missed out, and that sort of thing. And it's a lot of it is also practice. And once you do it a couple times, then you get used to it, right? But obviously the first time you're going to be nervous, and what I try to tell people, don't try to memorize the question, don't try to have the answer ready. You want it to be a conversation,
nice.
right? And so don't do that. If it's about you and your product, you're the expert. There's nothing that they can trick you on, right? Like, you should be able to answer the lessons, right? So there's nothing you should be nervous about.
Wow. So I'm a lesson for that, because when I sent you the questions, you're like, I looked it over. Nice questions, but I don't want to look at it again. I just want it to be organic, and let's just talk about it. And then
I don't remember the questions.
And even you saying that now, and saying you didn't want the questions and it's just going to be organic, it's just a lesson that I learned. So every time there's a guest here or somebody speaking, there's always something I get, and the way you so eloquently put it, it just made me realize, like, sometimes your product, where you're going with it, but sometimes I guess that nervousness and you want to sound proper, but sometimes you sound like
A robot.
a robot.
You sound like a robot. Practice, who you are. Always practice in front of the mirror. Always practice speaking out loud. There's nothing wrong with that. I encourage people to do that. But if you're going into an interview trying to have your answers ready, it's the worst thing.
Like, here's a client I want to get on. Like, give me a little session of what you would do. And
So you need to have a bio, proper headshots. You have any examples of you already doing interviews, written or audio or visual, that's great to have. You have a website that is up to scratch, that looks good. Social media, you have a decent amount of followers, that you're active, all that sort of stuff. Even before you start to pitch, you need to make sure all of those things are in place, right? Because that's what journalists look at first. Okay, what is your story? Is there something interesting about how you became an entrepreneur? Is there a personal story about your family or your path to success, right? So we look at what your origin story is and kind of craft that. So what is it that would make your story interesting to anybody? Why would we pitch this? Is there something that's coming up? Is there an opening? Is there a new product? Is there some social enterprise aspect to what you're doing? So what is the hook to your story? And then we do some scenarios. So, is there anything negative that you're concerned about being asked? How would you deflect those questions?
say now that person's website's not ready. Their story needs a little bit more working on. Do you have individuals that help those individuals get better prepared?
Yeah, sometimes I will help them and then look at certain things and tell you what you need to do. I learned from my social media experience, so I'm not going to get left behind. So I have started to embrace AI. It's a great tool. You have to have a certain amount of knowledge about what you're asking for. The media landscape is not taking the seriousness of AI and how it's going to be changing things as it should. I think some people have learned a lesson from social media and are not underestimating the role of AI and the power of AI, and are trying. Like, I know some, like CBC now has an AI policy, and now they're taking it a little bit more seriously, right?
Right. Give us some of your some cool memories of when you started out, and where are they now?
So Toronto one was a great experience. At that time, though, I had done PR when I was in journalism school, and I was volunteering at City TV at the time. It's Jojo Chinto brought me in.
Oh, nice.
He was one of my first mentors, and he brought me in, and I would volunteer there. Finally, I got a job at Breakfast Television. That was my first real job. I was like a year out of school, and I was a writer for BT. It was me and 4 white guys. It was different, and I'm writing for Kevin Frankish, like the guy, right? So yes, I'm reflecting right back to how I was shaking walking into the newsroom. my shift would start at 4 a.m. And I was living in Scarborough, so I get up at 3. I leave at 3:30 because there was no traffic. So I get to work by 4. Then I would finish at 9. And then I was working at Pride newspaper, which is a Black community paper, and I was the senior editor for them. So I would leave BT at 9, and I would go back up to Scarborough and work at Pride until about 2:30 in the afternoon, and I go home and sleep.
You really put in those hours, eh?
And then they offered me a full-time position. I'm writing for the 6 o'clock and the 11 o'clock news. And so that's kind of where my career sort of took off from. And so I was a writer, and then I became a senior writer, and then I became a producer, and I produced all the different shows on the station. And so at that time was when they decided to launch CB24. And so I've had that experience of starting, launching a new station. And so then when it was time for my son to go to school, I was like, okay, I got to find a job. I wasn't sure if I was going to go back to city or not. And then I heard about Toronto One. Starting a station from the ground up, that would be kind of cool. Brought me in for an interview. When I went in for the interview, Ben Chin was there, and I had worked with Ben at City, so I'm sure he was one of the people who kind of vouched for me. Tracy Moore, she was a reporter. Andrea Bain was a producer. Dina was the anchor for the entertainment show. Michael Serapio, who's now at CPAC. And he was at CBC. He was a reporter. Arissa Cox, who was host of Big Brother, she was a reporter there. So there was a lot of people that they kind of brought together. It was a really eclectic group of people.
Right.
Very talented. I mean, it was a magical time because it was kind of cool, starting from the ground up and thinking outside the box, which is what they were encouraging, and just being a part of it.
What's some of the accolades that are important to you? Or, I mean, they're all important. Don't get me wrong. But what was key, like that, like motivator?
Let me tell you something that's really funny. In the 25 plus years that I've worked in media, I never received an award.
Oh, no?
I never received an award until I started working for myself. And it was really interesting because I would say it was in the last 2 years. It was one year that was crazy. Like I got like a series of awards, and it was just like, everybody's like, another one. Like my parents, like another one, right?
Right. So your parents must have been really proud.
Yeah, they're very proud of me. I think, man, which ones really I was happy about? Well, definitely receiving the Communicator of the Year award from the International Association of Business Communicators was one, definitely. Because they recognized me for the work I was doing with raising Black voices in the community nationally, locally, and giving them a platform.
Right.
They gave me the Alumni Inclusive Excellence Award.
Oh, nice.
So that was heartening for me because I went there. And then, of course, receiving something from my community, 100 accomplished Black Canadian women. That one, and that was my first one, actually, was near and dear to my heart because that came from Black women. But those ones were, I think, the ones because one was from community, one from academics, and one was just for my body of work. One of the things that an advice I got from one of my early mentors is one of the things he told me was you always want to say that you're doing something. So even if you're not employed at the time, volunteer, right? Do something so that when someone asks you when you're doing what you're doing, you have something to say, right? Don't ever want to say, I'm not doing anything. Not working right now.
Right.
You want to say, oh, right now I'm doing public relations for the Sickle Cell Association of Ontario, right? In a volunteer capacity, or you don't have to add that, but you can just say that, so you're doing something.
Is there anything you want to ask me?
What took you so long to have me on your podcast? I am the title of your podcast.
I know. Now that I'm speaking with you, and it's just like, wow, like this could have happened a while back.
It could have. If you want to get a hold of me, the best way is through my website, which is fkbmedia.com. And there's a contact us page, and just put in what you're looking for, and then we set up a consultation meeting and 15-minute sort of chat to see what it is and what I can do to help.
Appreciate that. You might see me on your website just to be proud that I had a moment to talk to you.
This has been a great experience. I love rapping with you.
Thank you so much.